this first truth die. The maps are there for us to use, the rhizome that we fear to choose. They warned us of the rigid mold that breaks the map, the vital fold. Yet we prefer the root the same and bind ourselves in fear and shame. They warned against the love kin, affiliation we are trapped within. We are not built like rooted trees, but are defined by hierarchies. Blind habits block the active will and force the nomad to stand still. We lack connections far and wide, and lines of flight that lead outside. Wasp and orchid both embrace the folding of a different space, but when our lines begin to grow, we still repeat the ancient no. But fail to break with common sense. For now the tree of power stands and grips the world with rigid hands. So this remains a scholar's thought, a battle promised but unfought. We need to change and to transgress, but fear the middle's raw excess. We yearn to change and to transgress, and seek the strength to whisper yes.
A tyrant mask, a rigid wall that casts a shadow on us all. The abstract machine grinds and waits, seals the locks upon our gates. The white wall spreads the guiding signs, the black hole traps the fleeing lines. It nails our soul to what we are, a fixed and signifying star. Wears the icons of the past, the face of Christ designed to last, the social code we have.
Okay, we are back. Although nobody missed. Yes.
The book lies open, the ink is dry. Why did we let this first truth die? The maps are there for us to use, the rhizome that we fear to choose. They warned us of the rigid mold.
Let's see how it goes.
The vital fold, yet we prefer the root the same and bind ourselves in fear and shame. They warned against the love kin, affiliation within. We are not built like rooted trees, are defined by hierarchies. Blind habits block the active will and force the nomad to stand still. We lack
but language is the king's decree. The order word we cannot flee. It does not show, it makes us yield. Commanding power we can't wield. It speaks the verdict, lets us know you are condemned or free to go. To protein chains, the code is set.
Undo. Is there a tool that I could find to kill the fascist in my mind?
not about destruction's game. It has no need to conquer land, no despot's eye, no king's command. The strange machine smooths out the plain where no most claims the wild terrain. Here science lives that has no home. It follows matters, flows and foam, where problems fuel an endless fire, where vectors feed a new desire.
Where I was destroyed, found empty.
Then illness strikes you fine. The self is gone. It washed away. The self is gone. It washed away. We hear that cosmic chaos roar. It batters with simple hands, a sober grace. Dawn is force in time, and
Galaxies are made, they find the cracks and start to slip.
Okay. All right now. It is not created by me. It is created by YouTube channel I watch, which is Zen Tapir. If you like this video, you can go and visit their channel and view this music and enjoy it. When we compare, okay, we are gonna read chapter 1. We will try to finish chapter 1 today, maybe. I think it is not gonna be today, but we will try to read as much as possible. How many chapters there are? Okay, there are 15 chapters. And this book is like fuck 800 pages, 900 pages book. This is gonna be a long book, man. So let's see how we do it. I wanna take this slow because I myself don't know much about many things in this book. Basically, I don't know nothing, and I want to learn, about Darwin because Nietzsche, references him. So because of that, I also want to understand Darwin better, so I can understand Nietzsche better then. So in general, then I can understand philosophy of biology better. Biophilosophy then better. See, everything is connected. Variation under domestication. Okay. When we compare the individuals of the same variety or sub-variety, yeah, this is not important. This is like a summary, but which is, yeah, it is not important. Okay. Nothing is there. When we compare the individuals of the same variety or sub-variety, our older cultivated plants and animals, one of the first points which strikes us is that they generally differ more from each other than to the individuals of one species or variety in a state of nature. Okay. And if we reflect on the vast diversity of the plants and animals which have been cultivated and which have varied during all ages under the most different climates and treatment, we are driven to conclude that this great variability is due to our domestic production having been raised under condition of life not so uniform as and somewhat different from those to which the parent species has been exposed under nature. There is also some probability in the view propounded by Andrew Knight that this variability may be partly connected with excess of food. It seems clear that organic beings must be exposed during several generations to new conditions to cause any great amount of variation, and that when the organization has once begun to it generally continues varying for many generations. No case in record of variable organisms ceasing to vary under cultivation. Our oldest cultivated plants, such as wheat, still eat new varieties. Our oldest domesticated animals are still capable of rapid improvement or modification. Okay, okay, yeah, obviously, the variation and difference in the animal life forms never stops and it continues to differ. Obviously, no doubt about that. But he is telling us our oldest domesticated animals are still capable of rapid improvement or modification. Okay, I I do have a problem with the word improvement because this means that there is a stage which is less improved. You could have just said variation, and that would have been a better word here, as it's you know pos- goes with a hierarchy, I guess. Like this is improved, this is less improved type of shit, or rapid improvement. Hmm. Whereas variation is more. No, no, not variation is a better word here. At least for me, it is. But I am not Darwin, okay? I might be fucking stupid here. As far as I am able to judge, after long attending to the subject, the condition of life appear to act in two ways: directly on the whole organization or on certain parts alone, and indirectly by affecting the reproductive system. With respect to the to the direct action, we must bear in mind that in every case, as Professor Wiseman has lately insisted, and as I have incidentally shown in my work, variation under domestication, there are two factors, namely the nature of organism and the nature of the conditions. The former seems to be much more important. Okay, for nearly similar variation sometimes arise under, as far as we can judge, dissimilar conditions. And On the other hand, dissimilar variation arise under conditions which appear to be nearly uniform. The effects on the offspring are either dependent or independent. They may be considered as dependent when all or nearly all the offspring of individual exposed to certain condition during several generation are modified in the same manner. So for Darwin, the nature of organism is more important than the nature of conditions. Okay, that is interesting. They may be considered dependent when nearly all the offspring of the individuals exposed to certain conditions during several generations are modified in the same manner. It is extremely difficult to come to any conclusion in regard to the extent of the changes which have been thus definitely induced. There can, however, be little doubt about many slight changes, such as size from the amount of food, color from the nature of the food, thickness of the skin, and hair from climate and sea. Each of the endless variation which we see in the plumage of our fowls must have had some efficient cause. Okay. And if the same cause were to act uniformly during a long series of generations on many individuals, all probably would be modified in the same manner. Such facts as complex and extraordinary outgrowths, which variably follow from the insertion of a minute group drop of poison by a gall producing insect show us that singular modification might result in the case of plants from a chemical change in the nature of sap. Okay. Indefinite variability. Oh man. Indefinite variability is a much more common result of change conditions than definite variability, and has probably played a more important part in the formation of our domestic races. We see indefinite variability in the endless site peculiarity which distinguish the individuals of the same species, and which cannot be accounted for by inheritance from either parent or some more remote ancestor. Even strongly marked differences occasionally appear in the young of the same litter and in seedling from the same seed capsule. Really, this does this happen? Can two both white parents with white ancestry have black kid? Like, yeah, maybe they can have it. Okay, they can, but it is very low chance. At long intervals of time, out of millions of individuals reared in the same country and fed nearly on the same food, deviations deviations of structure so strongly pronounced as to deserve to be called monstrosities arise. Monstrosities. Monstrosity. Monstrosity. Monstro. Monstrosities. arise, but monstrosities cannot be separated by any distinct line from slighter variations. All such changes of structure, whether extremely slight or strongly marked, which appear amongst many individuals living together, may be considered as the indefinite effects of the conditions of life on each individual organism. In nearly the same manner as the chill affects different men in indefinite manner, according to their state of body or constitution, causing coughs or colds, rheumatism, or inflammation of various organs. Oh God, why? Okay, this is gonna be a difficult book for me to pronounce, at least. Rheumatism, or what is this pronounced? How is this from? Colds, inflammation. Rheumatism. Yeah, yeah, obviously, like even the extreme, not even like monstrosities also can be, easily explained by the standard deviation, I guess. Within, the people fed on same diet and food and similar fucking conditions. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we can understand that. Yeah, the cold affects everybody differently, so does the heat. Like I am much more, well equipped to deal with heat because I originate from extremely hot climates, and the cold I really don't do well in the cold. I struggle to even, think in an extremely cold climate, which is like for me 15 degrees Celsius, which is not much for a person living in, Siberia. It is gonna be like hot for them. For me, it is extremely chilling cold. With respect to what I have called, okay, with respect to what I call the indirect action of change conditions, namely through the reproductive system of the being affected, we may infer that variability is thus induced partly from the fact of the system being extremely sensitive to any change in the condition, and partly from the similarity as chlorate, chlorator, chlorator, chloriter, okay, and others have remarked between the variability which follows from the crossing of distinct species, and that which may be observed with plants and animals when reared under new or unnatural conditions. Okay, many facts clearly show how eminently susceptible the reproductive system is to very slight changes in the surrounding condition. Nothing is more easy than to tame an animal, and few things more difficult than to get it to breed freely under confinement. Okay, I don't know. Like, I don't know. Like, I am not a fucking animal catcher and breeder. So maybe, I played Ark, and in there, like, catching animal is, you know, catching the animal is harder. Breeding them is relatively easy, which is obviously opposite in real life, as Darwin is speaking, I guess. Thus, many facts are clearly show how eminently susceptible the reproductive system is. under confinement, even when the male and female unite. How many animals there are which will not breed, so kept in almost free state in their native country? This is generally but erroneously attributed to vitiated instincts. Yeah, okay. Like you have to fucking kidding me. You don't have any understanding of this word. Yeah, advert. Wait. Counting an error, inaccurate. Derived from an error. Yeah, fuck, I cannot even erroneously. Erroneously, error, there is error here. This is generally but erroneously attributed to vitiated instincts. Okay, so wrongly attributed. Oh man, fuck. To spoil, make faulty, to reduce the value, quality, or effectiveness of. Oh, vitiated instinct means something bad instincts, I guess. I don't know. Many cultivated plants display the utmost vigor, and yet rarely or never seed. Yeah, it is accurate. In some cases, it has been discovered that a very trifling change, such as little more or less water at some particular period of growth, will determine whether or not plant will produce seed. Okay, I cannot here give the details which I have collected and elsewhere published on this curious subject, but to show how singular the laws are which determine the reproduction of animals under confinement. Yeah, singular means like something, extremely peculiar and to that organism, like, that singularly in that species, in that animal, that individual thing, that kind of shit. Confinement. I may mention that carnivorous animals, even from the tropics, breed in this country pretty freely under confinement, with the exception of the plantigrades or bear family. Okay, what the fuck is plantigrade? Yeah, but like, give me one example, man. Okay, I think I have to find one example of this. Oh, humans are also plantigrade, I guess. Okay, but that literally didn't clear anything. Wait. Plantigrade in animals. Okay, bears make up the plantigrades. Okay, cheetah make it. Oh man. Okay, like there is not a plantigrade animal, I guess. I think this is like outdated term basically. Otherwise, there should have been multiple animals or bear family. Obviously, I know bear family. We seldom produce young, whereas carnivores, but with rarest exception, hardly ever lay fertile eggs. Okay, like eagles. Yeah, eagles are carnivorous, and maybe certain species. I don't know. Many exotic plants have pollen utterly worthless in the same condition as in the most sterile hybrids. When on the one hand we see domesticated animals and plants, though often weak and sickly, breeding freely under confinement, and when on the other hand we see individuals, though taken young from a state of nature, perfectly tame, long lived, and healthy, of which I could give numerous instances, yet having their reproductive system so seriously affected by unperceived causes as to fail to act. We need not be surprised at this system when it does act under confinement, acting irregularly and producing offspring somewhat unlike their parents. I may add that as some organisms breed freely under the most unnatural conditions. For instance, rabbits and ferrets kept in hutches. Oh, man. Yeah, there is a variation on how the animal and plant reacts to that. Oh, the raccoons. Okay, they are similar to a raccoon like. And they are not raccoons too, showing that their reproductive organs are not easily affected. So will some animals and plants withstand domestication or cultivation, and very slightly, perhaps hardly more than in state of nature. Some naturalists have maintained that all variation are connected with act of sexual reproduction, but this is certainly an error. For I have given in another work a long list of sporting plants, as they are called by gardeners. That is, of plants which have suddenly produced a single bud with a new and sometimes widely different character from that of the other buds on the same plant. This bud variation, as they may named, can be propagated by grafts, offsets, and etc., and sometimes by seed. They occur rarely under nature but are far from rare under culture, as single bird out of many thousands, produced year after year on the same tree under uniform condition, has been known suddenly to assume a new character. And as birds on distinct trees growing under different conditions have sometimes yielded nearly the same variety, for instance, birds on peach tree producing nectarines. Okay, there are like two varieties. They are very similar in a way. Birds on common roses producing moss roses. We clearly see that nature of the condition is subordinate importance in comparison with the nature of the organism. We clearly see that the nature of condition is subordinate importance to in comparison with nature of the organism in determining each particular form of variation, perhaps of not more importance than the nature of the spark by which a mass combustible matter is ignited has in determining the nature of the flames. Perhaps of not more importance than the nature of the spark by which mass of combustible matter is ignited, but has independent. Okay, like I'm getting confused here. Obviously, nature of organism is uh, nature of condition is subordinate to the nature of organism. No, obviously, no doubt about that. In determining each particular form of variation, perhaps of not more importance than the nature of the spark by which mass of combustible matter is ignited. Oh man, like I'm getting headaches here. Changed habits produce an inherent changed effects of habit and of the use or disuse of part. Correlated variation inherence. Changed habits produce an inherent effect, as in the period of flowering plants when transported from one climate to another. With animals, the increased use or disuse of part has had a more marked influence. Thus, I find the domestic duck that the bones of the wing weigh less than and the bones of the leg more, in proportion to the whole skeleton, than do the same bones in the wild duck. And this change may be safely attributed to the domestic duck flying much less and walking more than its wild parents. Effects of habit and the use or disuse of parts. Correlated variation in it. Okay. Oh man, like I'm fucking terrible reader, man. Okay. The great and inherent development of the udders in cows and goats in what are the udders, man? Obviously, udders are okay. Uh, milky machine, milk, milk giving organ. Udders in cow and goats in countries where they are habitually milk. In comparison with these organ in other countries, is probably another instance of this of the effects of use. Not one of our domestic animals can be named which has not in the same country dropping ears, and the view which has been suggested that dropping is due to disuse of the muscles of the ear. From the animals being seldom much alarm seem probable. Yeah, yeah, okay, but like this habit, yeah, I mean it is can be attributable to habit too in a way. Many laws regulate variation, some of which can be deemly seen and will hereafter be deeply discussed. I will only allude to what may be called correlated variation. Important changes in the embryo or larva will probably entail changes in the mature animal. In monstrosities, monstrosities, the correlation between quite distinct parts are very curious, and many instances are given in Isidore Joffre St. Hilary's great work on this subject. Breeders believe that long limbs are always always accompanied by an elongated head. Okay, some instances of correlation are quite whimsical. Thus, cats which are entirely white and have blue eyes are generally deep. But it has been lately stated by Mr. Tate, not Tate. Tate is like a different fucking word. Lately stated by Mr. Tide that this is confined to the males. Color and constitutional peculiarities go together, of which many remarkable cases could be given amongst animals and plants. From facts collected by I think the constitutional has been replaced by phenotype, the word, as it is not used in current biological discourses. I don't know, okay? Because I didn't hear it. So maybe from facts collected by Hughes Singer, I guess. It appears that white sheep and pigs are injured by certain plants. Okay. While dark colored individuals escape. How the fuck that is possible? Professor Wayman has recently communicated to me a good illustration of this fact on asking some farmers in Virginia how it was that all their pigs were black. They informed him that the pigs ate the paint root, lach nanthes, lachananthes, which color their bones pink, and which caused the hoops of all but the black varieties to drop off, and one of the crackers. Okay, oops. Okay, that is a hoop. I, Virginia Scotters added. Uh, quote, we select the black members of a litter or raising as they alone have good chance of living, unquote. Hairless dog have imperfect teeth, long-haired and coarse-haired animals are apt to have. Apt means like generally good, I guess. Fitting. Yeah, suitable in appropriate, fitted, suited. As is asserted long or many horns. Pigeons with feathered feet have skin between their outer toes. Okay. Pigeons with short beaks have small feet. And those with long beaks, large feet. Beaks means the what is called like their mouth, I guess. Yeah, that is a fucking beak. Beak means mouth of the bird. Hence, if a man goes on selecting and thus augmenting any peculiarity, he will almost certainly modify unintentionally other parts of the structure, owing to the mysterious laws of correlation. He was. Darwin didn't know genetics, I guess. Obviously, it was not discovered then. Maybe the same genes are, affecting the both parts. That's why. The riddles of various unknown or dimly understood laws of the variation are infinitely complex and diversified. It is well worth while carefully study the several treatises on some of our old cultivated plants, as on the hyacinth, potato, even dahlia. and it is rarely surprising to note the endless points of structure and constitution in which the varieties and sub-varieties differ slightly from each other. The whole organization seems to have become plastic and departs in a slight degree from that of the parental type. Any variation which is not inherent is unimportant for us. Okay, why the fuck that is unimportant? But the number and diversity of inheritable deviation of structure, both of those. What was this chapter called? Okay, but the number and diversity of inheritable deviation of structure, both those of slight and those of considerable uh, physiological importance, are endless. Yeah, obviously. Dr. Prosper Lucas treatise in two. Who give the uh, both those of slight, those of considerable physiological importance are endless. Dr. Prosper Lucas treatise in two large volumes is the fullest and the best on this subject. No breeder doubts how strong is the tendency to inheritance. That like produces like is the fundamental belief. That like produces like is fundamental beliefs. Doubts have been thrown on this principle only by theoretical writers when any deviation of structure often appears, and we see it in the father and child. We cannot tell whether it may not be due to the same cause having acted on both. But when amongst individuals apparently exposed to the same condition, any very rare deviation due to some extraordinary combination of circumstances appears in the parent, say, once among several million individuals, and it appears in the child. The mere doctrine of chance almost compels us to attribute it, its reappearance to inherence. Yeah, inherent inheritance. One must have heard of cases of albinism, prickly skin, hairy bodies, and etc. appearing in several members of the same family. Yeah, and there is a baldness that runs in my family. I don't know I am going bald or not. Like my hair is like literally shedding a lot at this moment. So I don't know, and I am terrified of going bald. The same family. If strange and rare deviation of structure are really inherited, less strange and common less strange and commoner deviation may be freely admitted to be inheritable. Perhaps the correct way of viewing the whole subject would be to look at the inherence of every character, whatever as the rule, and non inherent as the anomaly. Okay. The laws governing inheritance are, for the most part, unknown. Yeah. Okay, Darwin is literally, you know, like literally giving the hint of genetics structure. No one can say why the same peculiarity in different individuals of the same species. or in different species is sometimes inherited and sometimes not so. Why the child often reverts in certain characters to his grandfather or grandmother or more remote ancestor. Why a peculiarity is often transmitted from one sex to both sexes or to one sex alone more commonly but not exclusively to the like sex. It is a fact of some importance to us that peculiarities appearing the males of our domestic breeds in the males of our domestic breeds are often transmitted either exclusively or in much greater degree to the males alone. Okay, okay. A much more important rule. Is it accurate though? Like, so, some peculiarity appears. Like what? Uh, Maybe the bull has a bigger ears, like abnormally big. So only the male offspring has higher chances of getting it. I don't know. I don't know it is accurate or not. A much more important rule, which I think may be trusted, is that at whatever period of life a peculiarity first appears, it tends to reappear in the offspring at a corresponding age. Yeah, similar age. So sometimes earlier. In many cases, this could not be otherwise. Okay. Thus, the inherited peculiarities in the horns of cattle could appear only in the offspring where nearly mature. Yeah, no doubt about that. In the offspring at corresponding, thus the inherited peculiarities in the horns of cattle could appear only in the offspring when nearly mature. Peculiarities in the silkworm are known to appear at corresponding caterpillar or cocoon stage. Okay. But hereditary disease and some other factors make me believe that the rule has a wider extension, and that when there is no apparent reason why a peculiarity should appear at any particular age, yet it does and tend to appear in the offspring at the same period at which it first appear in the parent. I believe this rule to be the highest importance in explaining the laws of embryology. Embryology. Yeah, okay. Obviously, uh, for example, men who go bald also, go bald when father also started to go, you know, bald. So it is matched by the similar age range, and we also reach puberty at similar times as our parents, but I really don't know that. Okay. I believe this rule to be of the highest importance in explaining the laws of embryology. These remarks are, of course, confined to the first appearance of the peculiarity and not to the primary cause which may have acted on the ovules or on the male element. In nearly the same manner as the increased length of the horns in the offspring from short horned cow by a long horned bull, so appearing late in life, is clearly due to the male element. Yeah, obviously. Having alluded to the subject of reversion, I am here referred to a statement often made by naturalists, namely that our domestic varieties, when run wild, gradually but invariably revert in character to their aboriginal stocks. Aboriginal means uh, maybe like wild, I guess, indigenous. Hence, it has been argued that no deduction can be drawn from domestic races to species in a state of nature. I have in vain endured to discover on what decisive fact that the above statement has often and so boldly been made. Yeah, obviously, like there would be great difficulty in proving its truth. We may safely conclude that very many of the most strongly marked domestic varieties could not possibly thrive in wild state. Thrive, I guess, or five. Is there a word mistake here? I don't know. Yeah, obviously. Domestic varieties could not possibly thrive in wild state. Obviously, in many cases, we do not know what the original stock was, and so could not tell whether or not nearly perfect reversion had ensued. It would obviously it would be necessary in order to prevent the effects of intercrossing that only a single variety should have been turned loose in its new home. Nevertheless, as our varieties certainly do occasionally revert in some of their characters to the ancestral forms, it seems to me not improbable that if we could succeed in naturalizing or were to cultivate during many generations the several races of, for instance, of the cabbage in very poor soil, in which case, however, some effect could have to be attributed to the dependent action of the poor soil, that they would, to a large extent, or even wholly revert to the wild aboriginal stock. Whether or not the experiment would succeed is not of great importance of our line of argument, for by the experiment itself the conditions of life are changed. If it could be shown that our domestic varieties manifested a strong tendency to reversion, that is, to lose their acquired characters, whilst kept under the same condition and whilst kept in a considerable body, so that free intercrossing might check by blending together any slight deviation in their structure. In such case, I grant that we could deduce nothing from domestic varieties in regard to species. But there is not a shadow of evidence in favor of this view. To assert that we could not breed our cart and race horses. Okay, like there are different houses for cart and race. Long and short horn cattle and poultry of various breed and succulent vegetables or an unlimited number of generation would be opposed to all experience. Yeah, edible. A new word is succulent. Thank God it was replaced to edible. Okay, I'm gonna take a break. I will be back. Your boy is back, domesticated variety of brown stock. Superior or inferior? Certainly inferior. No, no, certainly superior. Like we can literally tolerate heat, cold, uh, better than any population. Character of domestic varieties. Difficulty of distinguishing between varieties and species. Origin of domestic varieties from one or more species. Really? Is there a species which is domestic variety that is has origin in two more or more species? Like really? When you look at the hereditary varieties or races of our domestic animals and plants and compare them with closely allied species, we generally perceive in each domestic, as already remarked, less inequality of character than in true species. Yeah, domestic races often have somewhat monstrous character, by which I mean that although differing from each other and from other species as the same genus in several trifling respects, they often differ in an extreme degree in some one part, both when compared one with another, and more especially when compared with the species under nature to which they are nearest allied. Okay. With these exceptions and with that of perfect fertility of varieties when crossed, a subject hereafter to be discussed. Domestic races of the same species, domestic varieties of the same species differ from each other in the same manner as do the closely allied species of the same genus in state of nature. Okay. But the difference in most cases are less in degree. This must be admitted as true, for the domestic races of many animals and plants have been ranked by some competent judges as the descendants of originally distinct species, and by other competent judges as mere varieties. Okay, who are the competent judges, though, who are judging the species? Like it is weirdly, racist and like, very backward. Obviously, there is like, distinction between uh, species and varieties, local varieties or breeds, as the racist language has gone away. At least in biology, it is not like you don't discuss in domestic races and this kind of shit anymore. This must be admitted as true, for the domestic races of many animals and plants have been ranked by some competent judges as the if any well marked distinction exists between a domestic race and a species. This source of doubt would not so perpetually recur. I think this is the problem with Platonism actually. This I think this problem still has not been solved as far as I know. The problem of speech is still there. Some competitors. This source of doubt would not so be perpetually recur. It has often been stated that domestic races do not differ from each other in character of generic value. It can be shown that this statement is not correct. But naturalists differ much in determining what characteristics are of generic value. Generic means, yeah, large and very. All such valuation being at present empirical. When it is explained how genera origin under nature, it will be seen that we have no right to accept often to find a generic amount of difference in our domesticated races. Okay. In attempting to estimate the amount of structural difference between allied domestic races, we are soon involved in doubt from not knowing whether they are descended from one or several parent species. This point, if could be clear, would be interesting. If, for instance, it could be shown that the greyhound, bloodhound, terrier, spaniel, and the bulldog, which we all know, propagate their kind truly whether offspring or of any single species, then such facts would have great weight in making us doubt the about the immutability of the many closely allied natural species. For instance, of the many foxes inhabiting different quarters of the world, I do not believe, as we shall presently see, that the whole amount of difference between the several breeds of the dog has been produced under domestication. Yeah, but it has produced under domestication. I believe that a small part of the difference is due to their being descended from distinct species. In the case of strongly marked races of some other domesticated species, there is no, I think dogs are largely taken from the descended from the wolves, which is the same. But there is literally nothing the same, man. Like in life, everything fucking differs. And so, okay. But the dogs didn't come from two different species. Like, yeah. Specifically, the bulldog, greyhound, they literally came from the wolves and have the common ancestor, which is wolf. Okay, I hope I am not terribly wrong here. Uh, as well as we shall see presently see, the whole amount of differences between the several breeds of dog has been produced under domestication. In the case of strongly marked races of some other domesticated species, there is presumptive or even strong evidence that all are descended from a single wild stock. Yeah, okay. I mean, we humans are also like outside the Africa are descended from very small population. Like Africa is like more diverse than the entire world as far as I know. Like African humans. Are African humans more diverse than the entire world combined? Like, I want to know that. Are African, oh man, humans more diverse than the entire world? Yes, the African continent uh, contains more genetic diversity than the rest of humanity outside Africa. Like, how the fuck is that even possible, even though, like, isn't it like, isn't it like we look more different? Like, I look more different than a Chinese, European guy. Yeah, obviously, that is not, whole of the genetics. There are many things you don't see which are different. Yeah, it has been assumed that man has chosen for domestication animals and plants having extraordinary inherent tendencies to vary and likewise to withstand diverse climates. Okay, I do not dispute that these capacities have added largely to the value of most of our domesticated productions. But how could a savage possibly know when he first tamed an animal, whether it would vary in succeeding generations and whether it would endure other climates? Whether it would vary in succeeding generation and whether it would endure other climates? Question mark. Has the little variability of the ass and goose, or the small power of endurance of warmth by the reindeer, or of cold by the common camel prevent their domestication? Yeah, but common camel is domesticated, or common camel is different. Oh, no, no. Yeah, common camel means, the which is adapted to deserts. Yeah, it is domesticated, but like not to the same extent as other species. Prevented their domestication. Question mark. I could not doubt that if other animals and plants equal in number to our domesticated production and belonging to equally diverse classes and countries were taken from state of nature and could be made to breed for an equal number of generations under domestication, they would on average vary as largely as the parent species of our existing domesticated production have varied. Okay. In the case of most of our anciently domesticated animals and plants, it is not possible to come to any definite conclusion whether they are descended from one or, yeah, now it is possible. We have arrived. Now it is possible, mostly. Any definite conclusion whether they are descended from one or several white species. The argument mainly relied on by those who believe in multiple origin of our domesticated animals is that we find in the most ancient times on the monuments of Egypt and in the lake habitation of Switzerland much diversity in breeds, and that some of these ancient breeds closely resemble or even identical with those still existing. But this only throws far backwards the history of civilization and shows that animals were domesticated at much earlier period than has hitherto been supposed. Yeah. The lake inhabitants of Switzerland cultivated several kinds of wheat and barley, the pea, the poppy or oil, the and flax, and these and they possess several domesticated animals. They also carried on commons with other nations. All this clearly shows, as here has remarked, that they had at this early age progressed considerably in civilization, and this again implies a long continued previous period of less advanced civilization, during which the domesticated animals kept by different types in different districts might have varied and given rise to distinct races. Since the discovery of flint tools in the superficial formations of many parts of the world, all geologists believe that barbarian man existed at an enormously remote period. Yeah, they are right. The geologists are right. The barbarian man or the man with the flint tools, like, was at least tens of thousands of years old. So yeah, okay, that he's accurate. Like, for in Darwin's time, like, the world was just 4 or 5 thousand old by the age estimated by the Bible. So yeah, and we know that at the present day there is hardly a tribe so barbarous as not to have domesticated at least the dog. Oh man, like, it is racist. It is racist and in a way very stupid. But obviously, it's like in Darwin's time, people were generally worse. So this guy was probably less worse than most people. And probably his discoveries led to proving them wrong, proving himself wrong, actually. The origin of most of our domestic animals will probably forever remain vague. No, it will not actually. But I may here state that looking to the domestic dogs of the whole world, I have, after laborious collection of all known facts, come to the conclusion that several white fishes of canine have been tamed, and that their blood, in some cases mingled together, flows in the veins of our domestic breeds. In regard to sheep and goats, I can form no decided opinion from facts communicated by me by Mr. Blith on the habits, voice, constitution, and structure of the humped Indian cattle. It is almost certain that they are descended from a different aboriginal stock from our European cattle. And some competent judges believe that these latter have had two or three wild progenitors. Whether or not this deserve to be called a species, this conclusion, as well as that of the specific distinction between the hump and common cattle, may indeed be looked upon as established by the admirable research of Professor Rutimer with respect to horses. From reasons which I cannot here give, I am doubtfully inclined to believe, in opposition to several authors, that all races belong to the same species. Yeah, okay, okay. Having kept nearly all the English breed of the fowl alive, having bred and crossed them, and examined their skeleton, it appears to me almost certain that all are the descendants of the wild Indian fowl. Okay, Indian fowl. Like, what the fuck is Indian fowl? Oh man. Oh, peacock. It is peacock. Peacock is called Indian fowl. Eh? It came as peacock as AI, but here it is coming as, oh, Indian fowl. It is. It is chicken, man. Chicken, chicken. He's talking about chicken. Galus Bankiva, and this conclusion of Mr. Byte and of others who have studied this bird in India in regard to ducks and rabbits, some breeds which differ much from each other. The evidence is clear. They are all uh, descended from the common wild duck and rabbit. Oh man. Okay, we will end here. I'm gonna read this much and end the stream. Are Indian cattles like an European cattles have different origins? Seems like I have to look up. Do Indian cattles and European cattles have different origins? Okay, they had the same ancestor, uh, but they were domesticated independently. Population of the wild extinct ancestor, the Oros, Bos Fermigenius, Indel, Indian cattle, Bos indicus, Jibu, originated and were independently domesticated in the Indian subcontinent. The Indus Valley region, around 8 to 10,000 years ago. They feature a distinct shoulder hump, loose skin, and high tolerance for hot, arid climates. European cattle, Bos taurus taurine, originated and were domesticated in the Near East, Fertile Crescent, Middle East, around 10,000 years ago. Before spreading into Europe, they are humpless and adapted to temperate climates. Would you like to know more about the DNA? Yeah, okay, they are. They originate from the same species but domesticated indifferently. Yeah, and selected for different traits, I guess. The doctrine of the origin of several domesticated races from several aboriginal stocks has been carried out to an absurd extreme by some authors. They believe that every race which breeds to let the distinctive character be so ever so slight has had its wild prototype. Yeah, okay, that is stupid. At this rate, there must have existed at least a score of species of wild cattle, as many sheep and several goats in Europe alone, and several even within the Great Britain. One author believes that there formerly existed 11 wild species of sheep peculiar to Great Britain. When we bear in mind that Britain has now not one peculiar mammal, and France but a few distinct from those of Germany. Okay, and so with Hungary, Spain, and etc. But that each of these kingdoms possess several peculiar breeds of cattle, sheep, and etc. We must admit that many domestic breeds must have originated in Europe. For whence? Yeah, otherwise could they have been derived? Question mark. So it is in India. Even in the case of the breed, the domestic dog throughout the world, which I admit are descended from several wild species, it cannot be doubted there has been an immense amount of inherited variation. Inherent heredity. For who will be believe that animals closely resembling the Italian greyhound, the bloodhound, the bulldog, the pug dog, or Belheim, spaniel, and etc. So unlike all wild uh, canid canines ever existed in state of nature. Question mark. It has often been loosely said that all our races of dogs have been produced by the crossing of few aboriginal species, but by crossing we can only get forms in sub-degree intermediate between their parents, and if we account for our several domestic races by this process, we must admit the former existence of the most extreme forms as the Italian greyhound, bloodhound, bulldog, and etc. in the wild state. Moreover, the possibility of making distinct races by crossing has been greatly exaggerated. Many cases are on record showing that a race may be modified by occasional crosses if aided by the careful selection of individuals which present the desired character. But to obtain a race intermediate between two quite distinct races would be very difficult. Sir J. Sebright expressly experimented with this object and failed. The offspring from the first cross between two paired breeds is tolerable, and sometimes, as I found with pigeons, quite uniform in character, and everything seems simple. But when these mongrels are crossed one with another for several generations, hardly two or them are alike, and the difficulty of the task becomes manifest. Mongrels, what is a mongrel? Yeah, okay. I think dogs are generally descended from one species. Let me check it. And here Darwin is wrong. Yes, all domestic dogs are descended from single ancestral species, an extinct prehistoric wolf. While Charles Darwin originally hypothesized that different dogs came from several distinct wild species like jackals and foxes, modern genetics has proven that every single dog from the tiny Chihuahua to the massive Great Dane shares a single common ancestor. Key details of their lineage. An extinct ancestor. While dogs are closely related to modern grey wolves, Canis loop, they are not directly descended from them. Instead, both dogs and modern wolves branched off from shared now extinct late Pleistocene scene wolf population that roamed Eurasia 15 to 13,000 years ago. Potential dual domestication. Although they come from the same ancestral wolf species, ancient DNA evidence suggests this wolf population may have been domesticated twice, once in eastern Eurasia and once in western Eurasia. These two early dogs group eventually met, interbred, and formed the baseline for all modern dogs. Interbreeding limits. Dogs can easily mate and produce fertile offspring with other species in the genus. Canis, like modern wolves, coyote, and jackal, which sometimes introduce minor genetic updates. However, they cannot successfully breed with more distinct canids like true foxes. Yeah, man, like how much there is a difference between dogs. Great hound compared to like great Chihuahua is like this much. Great dog is like the shit of great dog is bigger than Chihuahua. Like it fucking shits this much big shit. Yeah, it is wild. I don't blame, Darwin for not like, truly understanding this. Even I would have been fooled very easily or gotten mistaken. Okay, I will end the stream here. We have read for 1.5 hours and my limit has been reached. I am slowly increasing my limit to 2 hours and after that I will not increase it anymore.